Bonjour tout le monde, this is the girl Lady Rose de Walk the Talk. J'espère que vous allez tous super bien. C'est mon premier live que je fais sur YouTube. J'espère que ça va bien se passer. Donc, santé à tout le monde. Je suis pour comment ça s'appelle, le live le débat, pardon, le débat entre Biden et Trump aujourd'hui, le 27 juin. Il est 21h48. Je vais aller partager mon écran pour qu'on puisse écouter ça. J'ai mis la traduction en français, donc j'espère que ça va marcher.
Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases on the road.
Je vais juste monter le
whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that
mon volume.
I'm going to seek retribution. Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me
Comme je
involved
dis, c'est le premier live, donc j'essaie de trouver mon volume. Il est où?
Until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say? Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same.
C'est pas évident, hein? C'est quand tu commences quelque chose, là,
This is the guy who says Hitler's done
j'avais
some
mis
good
le
things.
son off
Like to
pour
know
que
what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American
que je puisse
democracy.
m'entendre, mais là,
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know
il est
that
où
sir
le
has been
volume
totally
là-dessus?
wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, without question, the worst president,
Ça,
the
je sais
worst
que c'est ma
presidency
page
in
à
the
moi
history
où
of our
je
country.
partage
We
le
shouldn't be
son.
having a
Fait
debate
que
about it. There's nothing to
je vais
debate.
juste
He
enlever
made up the
le
Charlottesville
partage
story.
2 secondes et je vais aller ajouter le son. OK, parfait. Et là, je vais faire le partage de nouveau. Vraiment désolée. C'est la première fois que je fais un live.
Like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Santé tout le monde. J'ai mis la traduction en français. J'ai mis, dans le fond, comment vous appelez ça? Le caption, là, pour changer ben voyons, tabarnouche, le français, le langage, je l'ai mis en français. J'espère que pour ceux qui ne comprennent pas le français, comprennent pas l'anglais, vont pouvoir lire dans le fond le sous-titrage, c'est le terme que je cherchais. C'est mon premier live que je fais sur YouTube. J'ai jamais essayé auparavant, donc soyez patients et patientes avec moi. Je vous invite à prendre le lien puis à le partager sur vos propres médias sociaux. Je vais en profiter de mon côté à moi pour aller le mettre sur ma page Facebook et Twitter pour que les gens puissent venir ici. Mais mon intérêt, c'est vraiment de voir qu'est-ce qui se passe entre Trump et Biden. C'est quoi vos opinions? Qui pensez-vous qui allait gagner ce débat, ce premier débat présidentiel? Moi, c'est sûr et certain que c'est Trump. C'est lui qui devrait le gagner si c'est pas lui qui le gagne, là, parce que tout est arrangé avec les gars des vues. On sait aussi que c'est le côté AI qui gère un petit peu ce débat. Est-ce que c'est vrai? Est-ce que c'est faux? Est-ce que ça va être manipulé, manigancé ou arnaqué? On ne le sait pas encore, mais pour le moment, je crois qu'on a une excellente opportunité de, malgré tout, voir qu'est-ce qui se passe, entendre qu'est-ce qui se passe et vraiment prendre notre propre à nous là-dedans. Donc, c'est ça que je trouve qui est intéressant, c'est ça que je trouve qui est important. Donc, je vous invite à prendre un petit verre de vin ou du thé ou du kombucha, peu importe comment que vous vous sentez. Soyez libres, profitons de ce beau moment de liberté. Exprimez-vous, partagez en masse, mettez-moi vos commentaires de qu'est-ce que vous pensez en français, même si que c'est un débat en anglais, vous pouvez toujours le mettre en français de votre côté et puis on est quand même au Québec, on est au Canada, on peut parler en français, en anglais, il y a pas de problème du tout. Moi, j'aimerais ça savoir de quel endroit que vous venez, que vous écoutez cet enregistrement avec moi et aussi, heu c'est qui que vous pensez qui va gagner ce premier débat présidentiel aux États-Unis? Parce que veut pas, ça va avoir un impact au Québec, ça va avoir un impact au Canada. Toute la magouille qu'ils sont en train de mettre sur le dos de Trump, c'est sûr et certain qu'il y a peut-être des choses qui sont vraies là-dedans. J'étais pas là, j'étais pas dans la chambre, j'étais pas dans les conférences, j'étais pas dans les bureaux. Il y a plein de choses qui peuvent être cachées, mais il y a énormément de choses qu'on a vues sur la famille Biden. On a vu Hunter Biden, on a vu son ordinateur, tout ce qu'il y avait dessus. C'était pas réglo, c'est de la pédophilie. Puis on a vu Biden sur des photos avec des jeunes enfants, même pas de 10 ans, qui leur poitrine, qui les collait, qui les serrait très, très près d'eux. Donc, pour moi, je crois que c'est vraiment chose qui doit être mise en avant-plan et arrêter de faire la chasse aux sorcières contre Donald Trump, poussés par les médias qui sont achetés et vendus. Donc, on est de retour
Welcome back to the CNN
directement.
presidential
Donc,
debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent
voir ce
challenges
qui est
you
correct
both
pour
faced in your first terms and you'd certainly face again in a
le
second
côté
term.
français.
President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. In addition to that, the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. It provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to be written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. If we find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. In the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it. And now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, Black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic Black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any Black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. Everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people to learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000 for anybody making under $70,000 a year.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. So about so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers, and he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and you, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make childcare more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. People, I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insecure. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We are the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one. wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up, go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history, through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I will show you, and they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us, ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see people talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariff. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are important. Number two, he's in a situation where he's devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit any contact, any with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struck treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come and done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great.
Seconde, j'ai fermé la mauvaise page. Torieux de Torieux. Je vais aller le chercher ici. Là. Ça sera pas très long. J'ai fermé le mauvais onglet par accident. Je vais aller repartager ça. Ça sera pas très long. Je pense que c'est ça ici. Il faut juste que je mets la traduction, le caption en... Trouver ça en français, là. Aïe, aïe, aïe. Malheureusement, le côté français de qu'est-ce que j'avais mis pour que ça soit en français, la transcription, dans le fond, en français, on ne le voit plus malheureusement, donc ça va être en anglais. J'essaye de trouver, c'est-tu là-dessus que je peux le mettre en français? Est-ce que c'est non, c'est pas ici que je dois être là, c'est ici que je vais être. Ça sera pas très long. J'essaie juste d'avoir le bon screen que j'avais tout à l'heure, là. La bonne vidéo que j'avais tout à l'heure avec le côté français. Wow! Pour mon premier vidéo là, live, c'est pas évident, je vous l'assure, c'est pas évident! Oh my God! Je vais partager mon écran quand même si que c'est en français. Même si que c'est en anglais, je vais enlever le On recommence les amis? Oh my god, what a mess this is. Mon cher.
How we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Like, name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with you for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and our those who he coddles up to. Kim Jong-un, we sent love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And both one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4". Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which one was vice president, down to a 6. And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap. 8.
Never.
But I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not
not
act
act
like
Oh my
President
God.
Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election regardless, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand a loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Non, mais C'est abracadabrant, là, tout ce qu'on est en train d'écouter présentement sur ce débat dans lequel que je crois que j'ai jamais vu Biden aussi sénile que ça de ma vie. Il a l'air quelque part d'être dirigé ou contrôlé dans ses oreilles ou d'une manière ou d'une autre par une autre, comment je pourrais dire, des personnes qui lui parlent dans ses oreilles parce qu'il y a une certaine cohérence. Je dois avouer qu'il y a une certaine dans qu'est-ce qu'il dit, puis il est en train de piquer Trump adéquatement. Mais personnellement, je crois que ce bonhomme-là est complètement irrégulier, illégal, un menteur, un menteur, un menteur. Même si que c'est le AI qu'on voit là-dedans, Biden, il a encore l'air sénile. J'ai pris des notes là-dessus. J'ai vu que sa face, on dirait que la face de Biden, c'est pas. Regardez les vidéos de Biden, il y a à peu près même pas 5 ans avant la pandémie, là, vous allez voir que c'est pas le même personnage, c'est pas le même visage. On dirait que le masque qui est sur son visage, fit pas, ça fit tout simplement pas. C'est un homme il a vraiment un handicap. Il parlait de golf, puis il parlait qu'il avait un handicap de cyste. Je crois qu'il a vraiment un handicap mental. Joe Biden, c'est sûr et certain. Comment il s'appelle? Trump, il est éloquent, il est clair. Que Trump, par exemple, dans ce débat-là, il est pas aussi taquin, il est pas aussi attaquant que j'aurais aimé ça le voir. Je vois que Biden, de son côté à lui, qui dit comme ça que t'as pas c'est quoi le terme qu'il avait employé, my God? Whining, que tu te plains tout le temps, puis que tu bitches tout le temps, whatever, et que ça pour moi, ça c'est le langage de Trump que j'aurais aimé ça qui rentre dedans, qui lui donne vraiment une raclée verbale, là, à la Trump qu'on connaît, puis qui dit qu'il détruit le marais, qui donne la vérité, puis que l'administration de Biden, le portable de son fils, Hunter Biden, toute la pédophilie qu'on voit. Moi, j'aimerais ça qu'il donne tout le côté épicé de qu'est-ce qu'on connaît de la politique américaine. Je trouve qu'il manque un petit peu de ça. Biden, c'est un menteur, un menteur, un menteur, un menteur, un menteur né. C'est absolument aberrant. Si Trump, il va avoir 82 ans quand il va faire ces élections-là, ben c'est sûr et certain que Biden, il a au moins 115 ans parce que regarde la face de ce bonhomme-là, il a de la misère à respirer. Ça va recommencer dans pas grand temps. Je vais vous laisser écouter sans interruption de ma part. En gros, Biden, il a l'air d'un fou dans ce débat. Il a vraiment l'air d'être sénile. Il a l'air que tout ce qu'on lui dit, tout ce qu'il dit de son côté, qu'il verbalise de son côté, on dirait que tout a été écouté, qu'il écoute et qu'il répète tout simplement. C'est pas quelqu'un dans lequel que j'ai confiance. Puis j'espère vraiment que les Américains vont voir que les démocrates sont vraiment des fous. La famille Clinton nous l'a montré, ce sont des voleurs, ce sont des pillards, ce sont des tueurs, ce sont des bandits, ces gens-là. Et aucun démocrate devrait reprendre les élections. On a toujours joué la carte des démocrates et des républicains, puis on réalise présentement que c'est vraiment les démocrates qui sont vraiment des salopards, des bandits, des tueurs, des criminels, des chercheurs à faire la guerre à tous les pays parce que ça rapporte et non les républicains. Parce que la plupart des médias qu'on connaît, que ce soit CNN, que ce soit peu importe, ils sont contrôlés par les démocrates. Il y a à peu près genre 5 ou 6 grosses stations de télévision américaines et la plupart sont contrôlés, peut-être même plus de 50% sont contrôlés par les démocrates, du moins les propriétaires. Ce sont des propriétaires haut placés qui ont des gros montants d'argent comme la famille Clinton, Fondation Clinton, Bill Gates et compagnie qui ont vraiment les médias. Fait qu'ils vont véhiculer, ils vont engager tous les médias, les journalistes vendus qui n'ont pas d'âme, qui n'ont pas de cœur, qui s'en foutent de la vérité. Ils vont pousser leurs fake news, ils vont engager des fact-checkers qui sont des qui veulent juste payer leur loyer, leur condo. Ils s'en fichent de donner la vérité. Et ça fait en sorte que c'est qu'est-ce qu'on voit présentement. Et c'est important pour nous de se réveiller. C'est important pour les Québécois, les Québécoises, les Américains, les Américaines, partout dans le monde de se réveiller. Donc, ça va commencer dans pas grand temps. Je vais laisser la vidéo. Je vais juste écouter comme vous. N'hésitez pas de contacter, si vous voulez avoir des informations sur les lois maritimes au 1-888-231-4278. Donc, de retour en studio, je vais juste mettre le son de nouveau pour qu'on puisse partir ça.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior, all now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Bravo à Trump! Yes! Nice! J'adore. Tel que je vous disais, c'est mon premier live. Donc, c'est pas évident, je vous assure, là, quand on sait pas trop comment ça se passe. Mais je suis quand même contente. Je vais savoir les prochaines fois comment m'arranger en conséquence. Donc,
The president and former president making their way off the CNN debate stage. Looks like Jill Biden, the first lady, has come out. Former President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest presidential debate ever now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on what those voters might make of it from our political professionals, from our CNN Flash Poll and Swing State Focus Group. We'll be talking to surrogates, including Vice President Harris, getting fact checks from our Daniel Dale and new reporting from inside both campaigns. With me here, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, Kate Bedingfield, David Urban, Van Jones, Alyssa Farr Griffin, and Newsnight anchor Abby Phillip, and David Axelrod, and CNN Chief National Correspondent John King. John, let me start with you. Your thoughts.
Anderson, this was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep
la First Lady était obligée de venir chercher son mari sénile parce que c'est sûr certain qu'il aurait été genre à gauche ou à droite, il n'aurait pas été en mesure de se replacer. C'était un bon débat quand même. C'était un très, très bon débat. J'aurais aimé ça soit un petit peu plus piqué, plus assaisonné, plus hot de la part de Donald J. Trump, comme que nous, on le connaît. Il n'y a pas de limite. Mais les 2 dernières minutes, je crois qu'il s'est sauvé la face correctement. Il est en mesure de vraiment bien, comment je pourrais dire, cingler, là, cibler correctement, c'est son opinion, retourner assez rapidement dans le 2 minutes qu'il y avait sur tout ce que Biden avait dit mal de lui, puis à la fin pour dire que we want to make America great again. Fait que moi, je suis pro-Trump à 100%. Je me fiche de qu'est-ce que les gens disent ou pensent. Vous avez droit à vos choix. Vous avez droit à vos opinions. Depuis que j'ai vu que Biden, son administration, il a juste fait de la merde. L'administration d'Obama a juste fait de la merde. Présentement, je crois que tel que je disais tout à l'heure, les démocrates, c'est comme les fédérales, c'est comme le provincial, c'est comme le municipal ici. Ils nous font accroire beaucoup de belles histoires, de roses bonbons, de dentelles, vous comprenez? Ils nous jouent du violon en veux-tu, en v'là. Tout ça pour, quand ils vont être au pouvoir en tant que servants publics, nous chier dessus. C'est aussi simple que ça. La plupart des gens qui détiennent les médias aux États-Unis, ce sont des démocrates. Hillary Clinton, la Fondation Clinton, Bill Gates, ils détiennent, Amazon détiennent les plus gros médias aux États-Unis. Et bien évidemment, ils sont pro-démocrates. Ce sont des woke, ce sont des abuseurs, des tueurs, des criminels, des violeurs. Et ils veulent absolument faire une dépopulation aux États-Unis, au Canada. Donc, tout ça pour dire que j'avais vu je vais essayer de vous partager ça ici, si je le trouve. J'essaie de me positionner sur ça. Donnez-moi une petite seconde. Je vais aller là pour essayer de partager ça. Je trouvais ça quand même assez important et assez bizarre. Le Digital Canada, c'est vraiment, dans le fond, il donne les probabilités là, des pays, tout simplement. Puis, on est sous celui du Canada. Hein, vous voyez ici, ça, c'était en 2017, all right? C'est le dollar canadien, bien évidemment. En 2017, ils disent comme ça que la population est à 36 millions, all right? 36 millions d'habitants sur une surface de 10,0 square kilomètres. Et le gros domestique, c'est 1,6 trillion. Et que le GDP per capita, c'est 46 000 à 48 000 pour les gens qui peuvent acheter. All right? Donc, et il y a un budget de 657 billions. Je ne sais pas pourquoi on est 37 millions. Je ne vois pas pourquoi qu'on a des dépenses de 657 billions. Billions. Ça ne tient pas la route, ces chiffres-là. Mais qu'est-ce qui est le plus inquiétant, épeurant, puis ça m'a vraiment, je me suis tombée vraiment sur mon arrière-train, c'est eux autres, il y a un genre de forecast en 2025. Donc, regardez les chiffres, là. En 2017, on était 36 millions. Eux autres, ils disent comme ça qu'en 2025, on est en 2024, là, on est le 27 juin 2024. Ils disent qu'en 2025, ils estiment 26 millions d'habitants. 26 millions! Là. C'est absolument débile. Right? 46 000 de GDP per capita. Et là ça va être per capita 39 770, même pas 40 000 $. Notre pouvoir d'achat, 25 000. Et en 2017, c'était 48 000. Le budget, c'est de 6,4 billions. Et en 2017, le budget était à 657 billions. Est-ce qu'il y a un agenda pour tuer la population, pour détruire la population? Est-ce qu'il y a un crime qui est en train de se faire présentement au Canada? Moi, je suis absolument aberrant comme chiffre. Je suis bouche bée par rapport à ça. C'est quelqu'un qui m'avait partagé ça sur ma page Facebook, puis je voulais faire un live là-dessus, mais là, je l'inclus là-dedans parce que ça tombe bien, ça tombe à pic, tout simplement. Je trouve ça aberrant. Fait que posez-vous des questions, les souverains, les souveraines. Comment ça se fait qu'on est capable de faire une dépopulation de tout près de 10 millions d'hommes ou de femmes? C'est absolument aberrant, c'est absolument exécrable par rapport à ça. Donc, c'est qu'est-ce que j'avais pour vous aujourd'hui. C'est comme je vous dis, c'est mon premier live. Si vous avez, il y a des choses qui ont pas bien passé ou peu importe, ou ça a glitché, nanana, c'est mon premier live de Lady Rose sur YouTube. Donc, soyez patients, soyez patientes. Partagez quand même, prenez le lien, partagez quand même, parce que le début de la vidéo, j'avais été en mesure de mettre la traduction, le caption là, en français. Mais après ça, pour peu importe raison, par accident, j'ai fermé cette page-là, puis j'ai dû le laisser tout simplement en anglais, mais une bonne partie, 30 minutes de la vidéo est en français. C'est ça qui est important. Donc, je vous souhaite une excellente journée, une belle fin de semaine. Prenez soin de vous. This is your girl, Lady Rose, de Walk the Talk. Je vous aime, mais aimez-vous avant. Bye tout le monde. À bientôt. Ciao.